Hello, everyone. Welcome to Math 45. I am your instructor, Mike Chamberlain. We are getting started this week with an introduction of what is voting. As we go through this module and the coming modules, you're going to learn, I hope, quite a bit more about the importance of voting and the different ways in which we can tally votes. So what do we vote on? Well, there's a bunch of things, and here's a list of, it's not a complete list, but a list of some of the possible things we vote on: political candidates, a school board, the judges that rule our court system. Could be something sports related, like an MVP award for the most valuable player in the National Football League, for example. The All Stars is often something we vote on, like the sports members that make it to the All Star game. It could be a vote like which city will host the next Olympics. That's done by a vote. It could be more business related, like a stockholder. If you hold stock in a company, you might have some voting rights. You could be on the board of some kind of business. It could be a bank. You could be on the board of a bank, and sometimes there's a vote held for those members, or those members themselves do vote. Or it could just be something like your favorite whatever. Maybe we take a vote and see what everybody's favorite candy bar is or favorite drink is. There's just a variety of things we could vote on, and the list would go on and on and on of what we could vote on. One of the most important kinds of elections to me are the local elections, and that's just on a personal level. I'm sharing that with you, and that's because it addresses things like clean water and schools and the trash around our house, the roads, the things that we see and we interact with on a daily basis. The other thing I like about it, here listed below, is number one, if it's a local election, the candidates are more accessible. You can get to them, you can talk to them sometimes, you can email them, and they'll respond. And so thus they're more accountable to you. Number two is kind of interesting, is that on local elections, if it's not something national or big, there's often a low voter turnout. And that means that your vote often counts more than it really would otherwise. The third thing is that often big changes begin in a small way. That local policy that you make can grow. It's kind of like a grassroots approach, can grow into something larger. Something I wanted to point out, this is a fairly old graphic now, but it's the idea that the non-vote often has won in the past. And this is just an example of a graphic from 2016. It's the national election. This is just showing the presidential election. And you might remember that year, it was between the two candidates. The two major candidates were between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Now, if you look at the numbers at the top, this is just raw percentage. It's not electoral college. We know that in 2016, Donald Trump did win that election, but in the numbers directly, the number of voters, Donald Trump won 27.3% of the vote, Hillary Clinton 28.5%. There's a small margin of people, 2.9%, that voted for a different candidate, maybe from a different party, the Green Party or whatever. But 41.3% of eligible voters in the year 2016 did not vote. And that means that those that did not vote actually sort of won the vote. They had the power to change the vote, but in fact, they did not take the right to vote or choose to vote that particular year. There are voting rights that people have as a citizen of a nation. Some nations, obviously the United States that we're in, we have different laws than some nations, or even within a state or a local county election, or within a school board, or within any entity that you're talking about, there's usually voting rights. Some states in the United States allow people that are in prison, incarcerated, to vote. Some do not, many do not, some after they finish their probation, some during probation. And there's just a variety of different ways that people can either have the right to vote or have their right taken away. Now, since our college is in California, I want to share with you the current California voting rights. All registered voters, if you are registered in the state of California, you can vote in a primary or a general election. It's kind of nice. And so here's the 4 bullets for registering to vote in California. You must be, number one, a U.S. citizen and a resident of California. Number two, 18 years old or older on election day. Number three, you cannot currently be serving a state or federal prison term for the conviction of a felony. And number four, you are not currently found mentally incompetent to vote by a court. So those are the rules in California, actually more strict than some states. So how do we decide who wins? And this might seem very straightforward, like, well, whoever gets the most votes. It is not that straightforward, and it is not always the person who gets the most votes that wins. And sometimes we might have an election where there is no decided winner. And so we're going to look at some of those throughout this module on voting. So why should voting matter to you? Now, I don't have an answer for that. I've provided some ways in which you can vote, some things you vote for. But as we proceed through this, I want you to think about this big question. Why should voting even matter for you?